The following is an excerpt from Vera, Her Mind to Wake, Book 1 by Julie Prentice, read by Julie Prentice. She felt a huge sigh coming, and her whole rib cage moved up and then down as she let out a big breath. She looked down at Rabbit's hands and saw that he had a cut on the top of his right hand, red and angry looking, the skin around it puffy. She looked up as she said, "What happened to your hand?" Rabbit's mouth quirked into a half smile. He opened his lips and said, "Are you done?" Vera frowned. "Done?" "Yeah." "Done what?" "Being angry at me." She was about to say no, but then was surprised to hear herself saying, "Yes." "Good. Because I'm tired." "You're tired?" "Yeah. It's pretty exhausting, isn't it? Being angry all the time." Vera thought about it for a second. She was pretty tired. She didn't even realize how tense her shoulders were until she focused on them and willed them to ease up a bit. "Yeah, it is. I can't seem to help it, though." Vera looked back down at his hands, a safe place to look. He rubbed both of his thumbs lightly across each wrist. "I know." He said it very calmly, with so much calm and understanding that, unexpectedly, Vera was crying. Tears fell quickly and silently down her face. She tried to take her hands back, but he kept holding them open, her wrists exposed to the air. Her nose started to run, and she desperately wanted to sniffle, but she didn't want to in front of Rabbit. Just when she thought mucus would run all the way down her face, he took a hanky from his pocket and handed it to her, releasing her right hand but keeping a hold of her left. She wiped her face and then looked back down at her hand. "Rabbit, I can't date anyone right now." Her voice sounded scratchy and husky. Rabbit sighed. "I understand." Vera immediately looked up. She caught the ghost of pain in his eyes, but then they were warm and kind. He squeezed her left hand. "I do. I understand. But I want you to know something, okay?" His right eyebrow lifted, and his face angled back slightly. She nodded to get him to go on. "I like you. And I'm going to wait. I'll wait until you're ready." Who is this guy? Vera thought. And is he really for real? What the hell are we doing? Sitting on the grass right outside my aunt's house. Shut up! He's being really sweet and kind, and you need to accept that. He's a kind guy. Accept it. Rabbit? Vera looked up at him and blurted out, "Are you for real? I mean, seriously, who talks like that?" His face was very serious. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make a joke. Make light of this. You use humor as a tool to distance yourself from people, from reality. You do it all the time." Vera swallowed hard. What? She did what? Used humor? She used anything and everything to stay breathing. Yeah, well, so what? You have no idea what I'm going through. Not really. No, don't even say anything. You have no clue. No freaking clue. So don't sit there all wise and open and kind and whatever. It's not. Stop. Just stop talking. He put his hand over her mouth, and she almost bit him. She was so angry. Again. "I know I don't know what you are going through. But let me tell you what I'm going through. I like a girl who is depressed, moody, angry, sad, and flat out mean sometimes. But I'm still here. Vera jerked her head away and closed her left hand into a fist. She broke his grip and pulled both hands away. She was about to get up and get away from him before she hit him, but he moved so fast she barely had time to take in a breath of air before he had her in a scissor-lock hold on the grass. Vera had no idea what was happening, except that his arms were wrapped around her chest. Her back was being slowly squeezed closer to his chest, and his legs were weighing down her hips so she couldn't move. The pressure on her body was in one instant so intense, she felt like her whole body was being dragged into his. She was about to call out, to get her aunt, to yell something, when the strangest thing happened. All of a sudden, she was back in her 4-year-old body having a tantrum, squirming and writhing on the floor while her mom stood by the door. Then, arms were wrapped tightly around her. She wasn't able to roll around. Her dad had gotten down on the floor with her and was squeezing her just as Rabbit was squeezing her right now. She shuddered once, twice, 3 times, and then she felt a crack deep inside her, and then a gushing. Her body convulsed, and she was sobbing as hard as she had the night she first found out about her parents. The smell of wet wool burned again in her nostrils as tears streamed out and loud sobs filled the air around them. Vera wasn't aware of anything but the pressure on her chest, the sobs erupting out of her like waves slapping the beach during a storm. Rabbit held her as she cried, as her heart broke again and again inside her. Eventually, Vera became aware that Rabbit was whispering something over and over into her ears. "It's okay. It's okay." He said it over and over, and as the words registered in her ears, slowly her sobs quieted. Her tears continued to flow, but her breathing became more and more normal until she felt like a wrung-out washcloth discarded at the side of the tub. Empty, drained, exhausted. She sniffled hard, the handkerchief clenched tightly in her right hand, out of reach with her arms still imprisoned by Rabbit. She leaned her head back into him and closed her eyes. She didn't know how long they stayed that way. Vera? She had no energy to talk, so she just moved her head to show she was listening. "I'm sorry about your parents." Vera nodded again, a dull sensation flooding through her. She was too tired to feel much, but she knew the pain would come back later. For now, it was a dull throb. "I know that you must be wondering what I'm doing. I mean, I basically tackled you. The thing is, Pete and I wrestle, and sometimes this is the only way to calm him down when he might be in danger of getting too rough. I didn't mean to use it on you, but you looked so angry. I thought for a minute you were going to punch me." He chuckled softly against the back of her head, and she felt a slight smile come to her face for a second. She shrugged her shoulders slightly to let him know that he was right. She had been about to hit him. Probably. She had been pretty mad. "Vera, I know you're hurting. That's stating the obvious, I know. But I needed you to know, to really know, that I'm here for you. I don't want you to push me away. I won't let you do that." "What if I really wanted you to go? What then?" "If you really wanted me to leave you alone, then I guess I would try. But I don't think you do." "Oh, really?" Yeah, I don't know. It's just a hunch, just a feeling. He chuckled again. I mean, you did just cry in my arms. If you really wanted to get away, you would have tried to wrestle out. Vera felt herself want to laugh. She surprised herself by letting it come out. She giggled, hiccuped, then laughed some more. How could I possibly wrestle out of this hold? I mean, seriously, you have me completely locked against you. I can't move at all. Oh, yeah. Haha. He relaxed his hold slightly and then he let go completely, rolling away from her. Her back was immediately flooded with cold air, and she shivered. She felt him get up off the ground behind her, but she still couldn't bring herself to move. Her limbs felt glued to the ground. She felt him move around, and then he was in front of her, his hand coming down to help her up. Here we go, he grunted, taking a lot of her body weight as he practically lifted her off the ground. She knew her face probably looked like a complete mess, but she smiled as she looked at him. It had been a roller coaster ride since he arrived in his beat-up car. Her emotions were all over the place. Now she felt giddy and as if her head were up in the clouds. Her smile turned into a grin, which became snorts as she tried to hold back the laughter that wanted to run out of her as fast as it could. She lost the battle of wills, and as hard as she had been crying only moments before, laughs came galloping out of her. She was actually guffawing. She started laughing even harder as she thought about that word. Guffawing. Who does that? Apparently, I do. She laughed harder. Rabbit put his hand on her shoulder, and she was able to stop laughing long enough to gulp in some air and look at him. Man, he was beautiful. Not many men are truly beautiful, but he really was. The kind of beauty that is not only on the outside, but radiates from the inside, like you could see his soul. It was more beautiful than anything else. Vera caught her breath. Her laughter stopped as suddenly as it had started. She wiped her eyes with a handkerchief and looked away from him. It was almost painful to look at him and his beautiful soul, like staring into the sun. Amazing, but painful. That's the end of the excerpt for now. That was from Vera, Her Mind to Wake by Julie Prentice, read by Julie Prentice.